Elon Musk, great to see you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I mean, we're here at the Texas Gigafactory the day before this thing opens. It's been pretty crazy out there. Thank you so much for making time.
Hey, welcome.
Busy day. I would love you to help us kind of cast our minds, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe 30 years into the future, and help us try to picture what it would take to build a future that's worth getting excited about. You've often said it, the last time you spoke at TED, you said that was really just a big driver. It's, you know, you can talk about lots of other reasons to do what you're doing, but fundamentally, you want to think about the future and not think that it sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general, there's a lot of discussion of like this problem or that problem, and a lot of people are sad about the future and that they're pessimistic, and I think this is not great. I mean, we really want to wake up in the morning and look forward to the future, but we want to be excited about what's going to happen. And life cannot simply be about sort of solving one miserable problem after another.
So if you look forward 30 years, this year, the year 2050 has been labeled by scientists as this kind of almost like this doomsday deadline on climate. There's a consensus of scientists, a large consensus of scientists who believe that if we haven't completely eliminated greenhouse gases or offset them completely by 2050, effectively we're inviting climate catastrophe. Do you believe there is a pathway to avoid that catastrophe, and what would it look like?
Yeah, so I am not one of the doomsday people, which may surprise. I actually think we're on a good path, but at the same time, I want to caution against complacency. So long as we are not complacent, as long as we have a high sense of urgency about moving towards a sustainable energy economy, then I think things will be fine. So I can't emphasize that enough. So long as we push hard and are not complacent, the future's going to be great. Don't worry about it. I mean, worry about it, but if you worry about it, ironically, it will be a self-unfulfilling prophecy. There are three elements to a sustainable energy future. One is obviously sustainable energy generation, which is primarily wind and solar. There's also hydro, geothermal. I'm actually pro-nuclear. I think nuclear is fine. But it's going to be primarily solar and wind as the primary generators of energy. The second part is you need batteries to store the solar and wind energy, because the sun doesn't shine all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So you need a lot of stationary battery packs. And then you need electric transport. So electric cars, electric planes, boats. And then ultimately, it's not really possible to make electric rockets, but you can make the propellant used in rockets using sustainable energy.
Right.
So ultimately, we can have a fully sustainable energy economy, and it's those three things: solar, wind, stationary battery pack, electric vehicles. So then, what are the limiting factors on progress? The limiting factor really will be battery cell production. So that's gonna really be the fundamental rate driver, and then whatever the slowest element of the whole lithium-ion battery cells supply chain, from mining and the many steps of refining to ultimately creating a battery cell and putting it into a pack, that will be the limiting factor on progress towards sustainability.
How much of the rest of that 100 is Tesla planning to take on between now and 2030, 2040, when we really need to see the scale up happen?
I mean, these are just guesses. I mean, so please, people shouldn't hold me to these things. It's not like this is like some. What does happen is I'll make some best guess, and then people will, in 5 years, there'll be some jerk that writes an article. Elon said this would happen, and it didn't happen. He's a liar and a fool. It's very annoying when that happens. So these are just guesses. This is a conversation.
Right.
I think Tesla probably ends up doing 10% of that, roughly. Yes.
Let's say 2050, we have this amazing, 100% sustainable electric grid made up of, some mixture of the
Yeah.
sustainable energy sources you talked about. That same grid probably is offering the world really low cost energy, isn't it, compared with now? And,
Yeah.
and I'm curious about, like, are people entitled to get a little bit excited about the possibilities of that world?
People should be optimistic about the future. Humanity will solve sustainable energy. It will happen. If we are, continue to push hard, the future is bright and good from an energy standpoint. And then it will be possible to also use that energy to do carbon sequestration. It takes a lot of energy to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, because in putting it in the atmosphere, it releases energy. So now,
Right.
Obviously, in order to pull it out, you need to use a lot of energy. But if you've got a lot of sustainable energy from wind and solar, you can actually sequester carbon, so you can reverse the CO2 parts per million of the atmosphere and oceans. And also, you can really have as much fresh water as you want. Earth is mostly water. We should call Earth water. It's 70% water by surface area. Now, most of that's seawater, but it's like, we just happen to be on the bit that's land.
Right. And with energy, you can turn seawater into
Yes.
irrigating water or
Yes.
whatever water you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At very low cost. Things will be good.
Things will be good.
Yes. Things will be
And
good.
also, there's other benefits, right, to this non-fossil fuel world where the air is cleaner and
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like when you burn fossil fuels, there's all these like side reactions and toxic gases of various kinds, and then like sort of little particulates that are bad for your lungs. Like there's all sorts of bad things that are happening that will go away,
Okay.
and the sky will be cleaner and quieter. The future's gonna be good.
What do you feel about the current architecture? Do you think you have an architecture now where there is a chance for the logarithmic curve not to tail off any time soon?
Well, I mean, admittedly, these may be infamous last words, but I actually am confident that we will solve it this year. That we will exceed. You see, like what the probability of an accident. At what point do you exceed that of the average person?
Right.
I think we will exceed that this year.
What are you seeing behind the scenes that gives you that confidence?
We're almost at the point where we have a high-quality unified vector space. Like in the beginning, we were trying to do this with image recognition on individual images. But if you look at one image out of a video, it's actually quite hard to see what's going on without ambiguity. But if you look at a video segment of a few seconds of video, that ambiguity resolves. So the first thing we have to do is sort of tie all 8 cameras together so they're synchronized, so that all the frames are looked at simultaneously and labeled simultaneously by one person, because we still need human labeling. So that at least they're not labeled at different times by different people in different ways, and then so it's sort of a surround picture. Then a very important part is to add the time dimension, so that you're looking at surround video. And you're labeling surround video, and this is actually quite difficult to do from a software standpoint. We had to write our own labeling tools, and then create an order labeling software to amplify the efficiency of human labelers, because it's quite hard to label video. In the beginning, it was taking several hours to label a 10-second video clip. This is not scalable.
Right.
So basically, what you have to have is you have to have surround video, and that surround video has to be primarily automatically labeled, with humans just being editors of it and making slight corrections to the labeling of the video, and then feeding back those corrections into the future auto labeler. So you get this flywheel eventually where the auto labeler is able to take in vast amounts of video and with high accuracy automatically label the video for cars, lane lines, drive space.
What you're saying is that you think that, I mean, the result of this is that you're effectively giving the car a 3D model of the actual objects that are all around it. It knows what they are, and it knows how fast they are moving. And the remaining task is to predict what the quirky behaviors are. That when a pedestrian is walking down the road with a smaller pedestrian, that maybe that smaller pedestrian might do something unpredictable, or like things like that. You have to build into it before you can really call it safe.
You basically need to have memory across time and space. So what I mean by that is, if you because you can't, the memory can't be infinite because it's using up a lot of the computer's RAM basically. So you have to say how much are you going to try to remember. But like if it's very common for things to be occluded. So like if you talk about say a pedestrian walking past a truck where you saw the pedestrian start on one side of the truck, then they're occluded by the truck.
Right.
But you need you would know intuitively. Okay, that pedestrian is going to pop out the other side most likely,
right.
and
the computer doesn't know.
So you need to slow down.
I mean, a skeptic is going to say that every year for the last 5 years, you've kind of said, well, no, this is the year. Well, I mean, we're confident that we'll be there in a year or two, or like it's always been about that far away. But we've got a new architecture now. You're seeing enough improvement behind the scenes to make you not certain, but pretty confident that this by the end of this year, not in every city, in every circumstance, but in many cities and circumstances, basically the car will be able to drive without interventions, safer than a human.
Yes, I mean the car currently drives me around Austin most of the time with no interventions. So it's not like, and we have over 100,000 people in our full self-driving beta program. So you can look at the videos that they post online.
I do.
Okay, great. And
some of them are great, and some of them are a little terrifying. I mean, occasionally the car seems to sort of like veer off and scare the hell out of people.
It's still beta.
It's still better. But you're behind the scenes looking at the data. You're seeing enough improvement to believe that this year timeline is real.
Yes, that's what it seems like. I mean, like I said, we could be here talking again in a year. It's like, well, yet another year went by and it didn't happen. But I think this is the year.